I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to this edition of I Mix What I Like, right here on Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be with you this morning. Please let me know just in case the mic or anything doesn't sound as it's supposed to. Appreciate you. Greetings, everybody. Coco, Ricky, Anthony, what's up, good people? Definitely do all the things, click all the buttons, do all of this stuff. For instance, and tell people to jump on in. Invite them to jump on in and join you. Don't be selfish with this boom bap breakfast. Got a couple things to get into, a little bit of fun to have, some not so fun to talk about. And then, of course, just quickly off the top, Friday, Lorenzo K. Irvin, Dr. Joy James, I'm sure Geechee Yaw, Brother Diallo will all be on hand to discuss Irvin's book, Anarchism and Black Revolution, something I've been looking forward to, been wanting to have happen for a long time. So thanks to Sister Aaliyah for helping with that as well, behind the scenes, Joshua as well. Appreciate everybody. Look forward to that. So something just to, help us get through the week, something to look forward to. Big shout out and welcome to Sherlon Cloud joining the channel. Good job. Welcome. Congratulations. And thanks to Latanya for the super sticker. Appreciate you. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much. Definitely appreciate that. And again, all super chats, etc., raised during any given show on the channel all go to the channel. So we appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we hope you enjoyed a little bit. Things didn't go as planned yesterday, admittedly, as we tried to celebrate Mumia's birthday. A number of different things jumped up on the lives of me and Brother Kalanji and others. So we did what we could, but we wanted to, again, wish him a happy birthday. And in fact, Mumia is going to come up a little bit later. And always, of course. But thanks to all those who came through and checked out some of the replays. Again, we had endeavored a few things, just wasn't able to work out. Life sometimes catches up with everybody. Many thanks, greetings to you as well. Thank you very much. Good morning. All right, so let's get into a couple things here. The first thing there was something that I just wanted to and I will try to come back through and somewhat stay in the chat a little bit. Right on, Friday. But the other day, whether it was on his channel, and I only got to see some of it the other day. I got to go back and watch the rest of Unmasking Imperialism. There was a lot happening at once. We had Warrior Class on, Unmasking Imperialism, all at the same time. And then again, life just children want parenting. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's ridiculous. But when we were talking about Thomas Sowell and this issue of and it'll come back up in this other story I wanted to look at. But this issue of, it kind of came up a little bit in the discussion of sexuality in the African diaspora, somewhat differently. But when Sowell makes, we were talking about his ridiculous argument, or his that in short, black. And then I teased Brother Diallo a little bit about it on Friday. But when Sowell suggests that black people inherited in the Southern experience a low class Southern culture that had been inherited from a low class European culture, and that this is leading to the constant inequality black people suffer. The one part that I don't think any of us raised, that I just noted and was just thinking about the other day, was that, well, what was inherited, if to the extent that that would be argued or true, what then could we say has been inherited by the so-called black affluent, the black bourgeoisie, the black conservatives, the black reactionaries? So is it to say that only the most materially deficient or the most unequal and oppressed, only they inherited something bad from Europeans, and then everything else that was inherited from the European, the African experience with Europeans was positive? So that is to say that people like Sowell who go to elite universities and take jobs and funding from white conservative think tanks, they've inherited what? So that would be the unspoken or implicit argument to the reverse, or the opposite, and that we should aspire to that. And then similarly, in terms of this issue that I wanted to just bring up at least a little bit this morning of sexuality in the African diaspora, what is or is not inherited through the colonial experience? And that's something that came up in the last couple of weeks here, and it's something that I haven't really, there's never been a focus of my study. So I didn't go into the rabbit hole, but I looked at it over the weekend. Just obviously didn't have time to do the topic justice, and it's not something that can just be researched, I think, in a weekend. But clearly a deficiency in my own study. So I was just kind of, but this argument of, it's like everything that is bad in the African world is inherited through a negative experience with Europeans. But everything that is said to be good, and again, in the context of Thomas Sowell, that's clearly not in an African context, but African-centered context, but everything that is good is supposed to have been what we inherited from the elite. So in other words, if we inherited it from the masters themselves, or the elite themselves, or the owners of the economy themselves, and it was good, and everything else was bad. So that was just something, just a thought that popped up. But it came up again because I was looking at, just curious about it, this question of what is and is not inherited, and it from what. Yeah, I'm sure, right? These, yeah. But and I don't know this person. I don't know, the author. I don't know the context of their politics. And it's something that was written by Sylvia Tamale, back in 2014. Just something I found in Al Jazeera America. Homosexuality is not un-African, and it was in the context of the arguments happening, or that were more at center stage at that time, almost 10 years ago, around Uganda. But so I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but there was one part of this that I wanted to, at least this part here, I wanted to just where she talks about African sexualities, in the context of what she says is the homosexuality is un-African myth, is anchored in an old practice of selectively invoking African culture by those in power. African women are familiar with this mantra. It is un-African whenever they assert their rights, particularly those rights that involve reproductive autonomy and sexual sovereignty. The mistaken claim that anything is un-African based on the essentialist assumption that Africa is homogenous is a homogenous entity. In reality, however, Africa is made up of thousands of ethnic groups with rich and diverse cultures and sexualities. As appealing as the notion of African culture may be to some, no such thing exists. Moreover, even if we wanted to imagine an authentic African culture like all others, it would be static. Now, this is that part I would say I don't agree with. I'm, of course, heavily biased by the African-centered school of thought that I was raised in, and particularly I'm thinking of the arguments of Cheikh Anta Diop, the cultural continuity of Black Africa, and those kinds of arguments. So I get that there are different ethnic groups, et cetera, and so forth. But as he argued, and I would tend to still agree, that there is an African culture that is consistent throughout ethnic groups that is only, different at surface levels. But anyway, but that I think is not necessarily the main point here. She continues, African history is replete with examples of both erotic and non-erotic same-sex relationships. For example, the ancient cave paintings of the San people, who I know are often, the San and the Twa, right? They're the ones often dismissed or improperly referred to as pygmies. Of the San people near Guruve in Zimbabwe depict two men engaged in some form of ritual sex. During pre-colonial times, the Mundoko Dako, or effeminate males among the Langi of northern Uganda, were treated as women and could marry men. In Buganda, one of the largest traditional kingdoms in Uganda, it was an open secret that Kabaka, or King Mwanga II, who ruled in the latter half of the 19th century, was gay. The vocabulary used to describe same-sex relations in traditional languages predating colonialism is further proof of the existence of such relations in pre-colonial Africa. To name but a few, the Shangaan of southern Africa referred to same-sex relations as Inkoshane, or male wife. Basotho women in present-day Lesotho engage in socially sanctioned erotic relationships called motosoal, special friend, and in the Wolof language spoken in Senegal, homosexual men are known as góor jigéen, men, women. But to be sure, the context and experiences of such relationships did not necessarily mirror homosexual relations as understood in the West, nor were they necessarily consistent with what we now describe as gay or queer identity. Nor were they necessarily consistent what we now describe as gay or queer identity. And this is sort of, and again, I having read it now, I'm trying to wait to see if Drs. Asante and Dove will come on. But before but I will engage their book more fully on this platform at some point. I'm just hoping it will be with them. So I'm just waiting to see if we can work that out. But this is sort of the point that I'm getting at, that I'm not. Again, so there is a quote unquote what I would describe as a quote unquote neoliberal, for lack of a better term, gay agenda that does seek, and I'm going to come back to this point in a minute, does seek to impose itself to create confusion and division and distraction within the Black community and Black revolution. But then there is this separate issue of how we understand these issues outside of an African context. In other words, that there is an African context that may not be appropriately understood using a very Western lens, which I think many people do, even when attempting or claiming to be using an exclusively African lens. If that African lens some claim to be using may in fact be more inspired or developed or shaped by imperialism and Eurocentricity than they would acknowledge or admit or be aware of. Anyway, same-sex relationships in Africa were far more complex than what the champions of the un-African myth would have us believe. And at the same time, and this is where I struggle with this piece, and I don't know the woman. This is just a one-off for me, so I'm not sure. But I also would want to make sure that attacks on African-centered thought are not themselves essentialist and Eurocentric and anti-radical. So there are some nuances here, and I know that's a difficult word, especially for the YouTubery and the Twitter sphere folks, but there is nuance here. that I find, at least, and I actually find fascinating. Apart from the erotic same-sex desire in pre-colonial Africa, several other activities were involved in same-sex, or what the colonialists branded unnatural sexuality. For example, the Ndebele and Shona in Zimbabwe, the Azande in Sudan and Congo, the Nupe in Nigeria, the Tutsi in Rwanda and Burundi all engaged in same-sex acts for spiritual rearmament, i.e., as a source of fresh power for their territories. It was also used for ritual purposes. Among various communities in South Africa, sex education among adolescent peers allowed them to experiment through acts such as thigh sex, hilombonga among the Zulu, ukumecha among the Xhosa, and gangisa among the Shangaan. In many African societies, the same-sex sexuality was also believed to be a source of magical powers to guarantee bountiful crop yields and abundant hunting, good health, and to ward off evil spirits. The Angola and Namibia, for instance, a caste of male diviners known as Zivambanda, Chibados, Kimbanda, Gangas, and Kimbamba were believed to carry powerful female spirits that they would pass on to fellow men through anal sex. Even today, marriages between women and for reproductive, economic, and diplomatic reasons still exist among the Nandi and Kisi of Kenya, the Igbo of Nigeria, the Nuer of Sudan, and the Korea of Tanzania. Like elsewhere around the world, anal intercourse between married opposite-sex partners to avoid pregnancy was historically practiced by many Africans before the invention of modern contraceptive methods. Clearly, it is not homosexuality that is un-African, but the laws that criminalize such relations. In other words, what is alien to the continent is legalized homophobia exported to Africa by the imperialists, where there had been indifference to and even tolerance of same-sex relations. In Uganda, such laws were introduced by the British and have been part of our penal law since the late 19th century. The current wave of anti-homosexuality laws sweeping across the continent is therefore part of a thinly veiled and wider political attempt to entrench repressive and undemocratic regimes. Anyway, I don't know the author. I don't know the context of her politics, but that argument resonates and makes sense to me. So it's just something I have to look more into. And I don't see anyway. I don't see certainly in the silliness and the hostility and the name calling, I don't see an argument that contradicts that. So I'm happy to get some constructive criticism and responses. Please send them my way or jump in the chat. And I'm anyway. But more to my point, and this is, or in addition to my point, given that it was his birthday yesterday, I did look quickly to see, and maybe just not closely enough. There was just one. I was looking for a commentary from Mumia on this or related subject, and only found one in my very quick look. I didn't put a lot of time into this, but it basically makes the point in one way or another that I'm trying to make in my approach to this topic. Which is just my approach. It's obviously not sufficient, but it's from a commentary when trans women die on the 19th of on October 13th, 2019, from Mumia, where he's talking about it, saying that in recent weeks we have seen naked violence unleashed against trans women, directed against. You know what? Why am I even? They got the audio right there. We can hear the man for himself. It's not a long commentary. So let's just play it.
When trans women die. In recent weeks, we have seen naked violence unleashed against trans women, directed against them by the state in the form of police beatings, and by rightist forces in this emerging fascist movement in America. What does this mean? Why now? I believe it comes now for a specific strategic purpose. For trans women stand on the periphery of the gay rights movement, not its nucleus. This means they are isolated and as such targeted by rightist forces to isolate them further. We must not forget that they are, after all, Black folks, in a land and at an era where and when black life remains cheap. Now add black, gay, and transgender. See where the analysis goes? And if it's black trans women today, it'll be black straight women tomorrow and black children soon thereafter. That's the nature of the fascist beast. Attack those who seem weak, isolate them, destroy them. Since Charlottesville, we've seen the emergence of rightist, racist forces that are committed to destroying black life and to proving that black lives don't matter. The lives of black people are the literal foundation, not just of America, but all of us. We need to build a radical movement that protects all of us, for all of us, that consigns such racist violence to the trash heaps of history. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Again,
these commentaries are recorded by Noel Hanrahan of Prison Radio.
And much respect to Prison Radio and Noel for that work for all these years. But that ultimately is my point. I mean, I am not without my ignorance and my hangups and whatever. But my fundamental point is that, as Mumia says here, and this was my only point, and is my only point, not my only point, but my starting point on this issue. We must not forget that they are, after all, black folks in the land and at an era where and when black life remains cheap. Now add black, gay, and transgender. See where the analysis goes. And if the black trans woman's today, it'll be the black straight woman tomorrow and black children soon after. So now, obviously, in the African or black context, there isn't a discussion, there isn't a claim, at least, that hostility towards LGBTQ folks in the black community would extend beyond them. But I think that the logic does continue that if I personally don't see it as inconceivable that if a group within the African diaspora is anti another group within the African diaspora, that wouldn't also translate politically as well. So if quote, they are to be castigated for their gender and sexual preferences, then how anyway, seems like a slippery slope there into the political ideological world as well. And then it does sound, the arguments sound a lot like what I hear when people are doing joke, because I don't watch the shows, when I hear people doing joke commentaries about people like Tucker Carlson and stuff like that, and Steven Crowder and what is R.M. Brown's favorite? Now I can't think of his name. What's his name? The conservative Jew that he's always making fun of. Ben Shapiro. Man, I'm telling you, R.M. Brown is hilarious. Anyway, so that was it. I just wanted to, that was just where I wanted to start this morning. Again, that so well question, what is being inherited by whom, from whom, ideologically, and then what is being inherited in terms of our critiques and our views of gender and sexual preferences from an original African pre-colonial past, or a European and Arab inspired imposition through impositions of enslavement, religions, etc., etc. Okay. Yeah, Ben Shapiro, right? Ben Shapiro. All right. So the other thing another thing I wanted to get to this morning is a little bit from one of another interesting this channel. I haven't seen anything. Actually, I have not watched a video from this channel since the last time they did a commentary that went into Disney and copyright and controlling the image, controlling images. So let me just play a little clip of this because this was very interesting from this channel's latest.
Like Worldwide XR, an IP licensing company and production studio formed in 2019. Looking through their website, they seem to function like a talent agency, except they're a talent agency.
Let me try to back. Let me
dead.
just. It's a talent agency for the dead, and it's in the context of this video is talking about Disney and its ownership of everything. So we've already talked previously about their ownership of popular intellectual property or IP, and but now there's this, and so what Disney is wanting to do, apparently, starting with James Dean, whose image they own, is put out a whole bunch of new commercial product using the image of long dead celebrities. And so what a little bit of what this video gets into is the legal positioning of all this, where we may own our own physical bodies, but we do not own our images. And depending on what legal rights one sets up, for at least 70 years after the death of a celebrity, the rights to that celebrity's image are owned by them or their legal representatives. After that, it gets a little more murky. And because we're now coming up on I think they're saying post 70 years since the death of James Dean. Anyway, we'll see how this, you'll see in a moment how this fits in more specifically with us here. But let me just play this clip. This is, I think, fascinating stuff and terrifying stuff.
Worldwide XR, an IP licensing company and production studio formed in 2019. Looking through their website, they seem to function like a talent agency, except they're a talent agency for the dead. The products that they're licensing aren't brands, they're people. Worldwide claims to either own or have exclusive deals with the families, estates, and rights holders of the likenesses of over 400 dead celebrities, and they've worked with huge companies like Apple, Google, Sony, and McDonald's. If you head on over to their website, they even have a nice clean catalog of all the dead people you can license for your movies and ads, including famous faces like Burt Reynolds, Andre the Giant, Maya Angelou, Malcolm X, Neil Armstrong, Rosa Parks, and would you look at that, James Dean. Yep, Worldwide XR's predecessor, CMG Worldwide, was the company that helped coordinate the Finding Jack adaptation that started me down this rabbit hole in the first place. So just to wrap things up here in a nice little bow, who owns dead celebrities? It depends, mostly on where you are and how long they've been dead. If you're in a US jurisdiction with right of publicity laws that extend after death, the image of a dead celebrity is owned by their family or estate for up to 100 years after they've died. They can then license out that celebrity's image for any number of things, for vacuum ads, for TV cameos, and yes, even leading roles in feature films. But here's where things start to get tricky. What happens after the rights of publicity expire? As I noted earlier, James Dean died nearly 70 years ago. Couldn't Magic City Films wait a few more years to insert a digital zombie of Dean into their movies and not have to pay a penny for it? Heck, could I resurrect James Dean to co-host the show? Historically, this sort of concern has never been a problem. While someone's right to publicity may lapse, the copyright for images of them are in effect for a much longer period, the life of the author plus 70 years. For instance, as we've discussed, James Dean's right to publicity expires 70 years after his death in 1955, so that would be 2025, just 3 years from now. But most of the pictures of James Dean were taken by a man named Dennis Stock. Since he's the owner of those images, it means that the copyright is tied to his life. And considering Dennis Stock died in 2010, Dean's most iconic pictures enter public domain for use in 2080, a full 55 years after Dean's likeness becomes available. And since there's never been a way to exploit a dead actor that doesn't involve pictures or video of them, well, that's just just really how long you had to wait. But now we've got deepfake technology. We're feeding libraries of images and videos into computers to produce living, breathing, talking resurrections of actors. And legally, it falls into an area that is so new that the law has, to the best of our research, never once considered. As it sits right now, theoretically, there doesn't seem to be anything stopping me from creating a lifelike render of James Dean in 3 years and using him to host the show, or star in my next movie, or whatever. And the copyrights for the original images that I'm feeding into the machine to produce my James Dean bot don't seem to matter either. At least they don't seem to matter to Disney. In the behind-the-scenes documentary for The Mandalorian, the visual effects artist for ILM admitted that they had searched the internet for any and all high-quality interviews that they could find of Mark Hamill from the 80s.
There was a moment where I even scoured the internet and found older interviews and that of Mark Hamill.
Makes me feel good that Disney basically does the same thing that our editors do for this show to pull our assets. Anyway, if those teams over at Disney use that footage in their deepfakes, they sure didn't credit any of the interviews they used. Believe me, I checked, sat through the Mandalorian's credits and read every single name. Nothing. In short, as people die and their right to publicity expires, it's starting to look like you could create an archive of famous actors, all used for free, all waiting in their refrigerated underground robot bunker, or computer server, but I think underground bunker is the cooler image, waiting to be rolled out to shill for the latest vacuum cleaner and chocolate bar. The only thing that could possibly protect him at this point is trademark, maybe. But right now it all hinges on one woman, Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was the it girl of Hollywood back.
All right, I think we get the point. And you get the point, and you've already seen what likely piqued my interest and yours. But so looking a little bit further into this, so Worldwide XR, formerly known as CMG, currently owns the rights to a number of people we might find important. I think chief among them, for the political purposes, of course, is Malcolm X. And I wanted to know how that happened. I wasn't really clear on how that happened, and who they are, or any of that. But it seems like something that would be and should be of some concern. And the short of it is that the late Betty Shabazz made this arrangement. Let's see. This is an article from the Baltimore Sun in 1997. If I just quickly excuse my neighbor's dog. If let's see. In 1991, with X hats and Malcolm X t-shirts. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy, boy. In 1991, with X hats and Malcolm X t-shirts proliferating, Shabazz, that is Betty Shabazz, retained CMG Worldwide of Indianapolis to license Malcolm X's name and likeness. People were using Malcolm's material and copywriting it as their own, she said in a 1994 interview with The Sun. I woke up one morning totally nonplussed and thought, this is abuse in the broadest, deepest, and wildest sense. If I don't sleep, eat, or anything else, this is going to end. In 1992, Spike Lee's atrocious, my editorial edition, Malcolm X appeared, and Shabazz JTC was at the center stage. She attended a Harlem premiere with Denzel Washington, Whitney Houston, and other celebrities. An estimated $100 million in Malcolm goods were sold in 1991-92, which should have netted Shabazz up to 5% in royalties. Through it all, Mark Rosler, who is the current CEO of CMG's new Worldwide XR, said that she remained down to earth. He's quoted saying she's a very determined lady, blah, 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 blah. Even in the year, she would always make a point to tell me she went shopping stuff. That was something I said, da, 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 da. Talking about she got her clothes at Goodwill. They do mention my main man, Dr. James Turner, in here, who brokered a peace building relationship between Betty and Minister Farrakhan after she said that he, of course, did play a role in her husband's killing, saying it was a badge of honor for them. But ultimately, the point was and is that she saw people making money off of Malcolm's image, wanted to take some control of that. And that's how we end up where we are today, where you have a very white-owned company managing the image. And then, so what this would also mean, according, if to the extent that that video we saw a clip of is correct, that anytime now, Malcolm could be used to, as is talking about here, sell NFTs. CMG Worldwide will develop unique NFT collectibles. We have an alliance partnership. Well, Worldwide XR owns CMG Worldwide, so I don't know. So of course they have an alliance and partnership with licensing powerhouse CMG Worldwide to develop NFTs and digital collectibles, mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, gaming, crypto, and digital focused immersive media. So we may very well see Malcolm X in an ad saying, buy any crypto necessary, as in BUY, any crypto necessary. We are entering the fourth industrial revolution, the fourth wave of consumer technology. Well, I'll come back to that. And they even have him in the masthead. Malcolm right there with Jackie Robinson right next to James Dean. So this was a commercial with was this the one I saw with Amelia Earhart selling like candy or something like that? And these are the folks that this is just some of the, and this is who, you would have to contact. Okay, if you want, let me see. Let me come back to the about. Here's the team, just so we can see that this is Mark Rosler, who was just quoted in that Betty Shabazz story. This is the crew, and they're largely going to be in control, or are in control of, So that new Malcolm movie, boy, I mean, that new Malcolm part 2 could be really, could be hot. Because they also came up in oh wait, this is that same, wait a minute. No. The ads that come up in this stuff is crazy. Oh no, that's not the right one. So I didn't save the link apparently, but if folks remember, not long ago there was the dust up with Nicki Minaj, and she had appropriated a photo of Malcolm X. But anyway, it was okay. Here we go. I think this is it here. Yeah, because it was oh man. So clearly that's intentional. It's very difficult to get to the I'm having a hard time getting to the actual article because of all the pop-ups. Man. But if folks remember, so that Nicki Minaj, look at this. I can't close them out fast enough. And then when you like, all right, and then is it going to send me out of the story? All right. Can I pull up my note? And I hope that yard work being done down the street isn't too loud. So where's, okay, there it is. Mark Russell, the CEO of CMG, which handles the licensing and merchandising issues for Malcolm X's estate, called Minaj's use of the photo dehumanizing. That was the line I was looking for. So that guy, so that's dehumanizing. So what is he going to allow the image of Malcolm to be used for? Like he's, you know, so he may be right in this sense, but I don't like that he's the one determining that Nicki Minaj. So again, you have a white guy in control of whether a black woman, rightly or wrongly, can use an image referencing Malcolm X. And it's not because he's trying to protect the human and certainly the radical human aspect of Malcolm X. Anyway, I thought that was fascinating and terrifying all at once. So yeah, and speaking of which, speaking of infuriating and terrifying, we covered this on the platform last year when the story broke, and I just saw that the other day there was this update. Speaking again of Mumia and again of pop-up ads, good God. Or Mumia-related issues. Decades after Philadelphia's move, bombing Penn Museum still keeps secrets on the remains of 12-year-old girl. Delicia's mother, Janet Africa, deserves to know where her child's sacred remains are. In the story by Abdul Ali A. Muhammad. Last April, I was one of two people to break the story about Penn Museum's mention of remains of black girls murdered in a police bombing. The headquarters and home of the MOVE organization, a group mostly black people organized together by the tenets of John Africa, was bombed by the city. The MOVE bombing happened a day after Mother's Day on May 13th, 1985, under the direction of Philadelphia Mayor Woodrow Wilson Good, City Managing Director Leo Brooks, and Police Commissioner Gregor Sambor. The Philadelphia Police Department and Fire Department launched a militarized assault culminating with the bomb disposal unit of the police department dropping a combination satchel bomb on MOVE house. This warlike deadly assault on the MOVE family included brutal violence heaped upon the precious children. 11 people, including 5 children, were murdered that day, some showing evidence of being shot. Delicia Orr was 12 and Patricia Tree Dotson was 14 when their lives were taken in the state-sanctioned deluge of water canyons, tear gas, bullets, and fire. This disturbing information about remains being held without consent followed the public's consternation about the museum's holding of crania that belonged to enslaved black people from the Caribbean and the United States, and grave-robbed crania by black Philadelphians. What unfolded from this was a towering display of re-traumatization and grief as the families and loved ones of Patricia and Delicia revisited the pain of the past. As reported, Janet Monge, formerly the associate curator in charge and keeper of collections in the physical anthropology section at the museum and former adjunct professor at the university's Department of Anthropology, held up the juicy, quote, juicy remains of Patricia and Coursera, an online learning platform. Monge was also visiting Professor Princeton. Alan Mann, who was Monge's dissertation advisor during the bombing in 1985 and a former professor at Penn, is currently a professor emeritus at Princeton University. Mann is a former curator of Penn Museum's physical anthropology section and was hired by the city to investigate the remains with the assistance of Monge. The University of Pennsylvania's independent investigation was led by the Tucker Group and released to the public on August 25th, 2021. Princeton University hired Ballard Safir to conduct an investigation released about a week later. Both reports failed to determine the whereabouts of Delicia's remains and relied heavily on written statements by and interviews with Mann and Monge. Mann only granted an interview to Ballard Safir. It's clear from reviewing the documentation from Philadelphia City's archives, not included in either report, that we were lied to about Delicia's remains never being retained by Mann and Monge. Both stated in varying ways that they never received Delicia's remains, but archival documentation disagrees with their assertions. Delicia's mother, Janet Africa, deserves to know where her child's sacred remains are. The article goes on and is a bit lengthy and goes on to discuss the chain of custody and why there's so much confusion and hemming and hawing and shadiness and etc. And ends, and of course I'll include the link in the show notes, it ends by saying, "This is a disgusting game of hide and seek with the bodily remains of Black children. I demand that Princeton and Penn denounce the continued violence of this act and that a forensic specialist not tied to the universities be commissioned to investigate where the lost bones of Delisha are. Mann's emeritus designation at both Penn and Princeton University should be revoked, as Princeton students have previously demanded. Mann should be disallowed to further any work that deals with human remains and should be immediately dismissed by Penn. We must do this for the families still dealing with the wounds of last year." So in my notes here, I just have, some inappropriate and kind of disgusting notation to remind me of the continuity of the colonial nightmare in the lived experience of African people in particular, but then in the posthumous even experience. I know I talk a lot about and focus a lot about the rebranding of people's images and messaging politically, but we're seeing it happen in a digital imaging context. We're seeing it happen in a literal physical remains context, that in every instance of the colonial experience, from pre-birth to after death, the colonial relationship holds true, holds form. And to think that the remains of children killed by the state, having already suffered the colonial bondage of the state, could be managed, benefited from, manipulated, etc., by the colonial apparatus. And then in a digital image, we could see the same, where we could end up seeing a rebranded Malcolm X. We could literally see a Disney production starring Malcolm X and Marilyn Monroe. Imagine the damage already done intellectually and politically by the rebranding of these histories by some scholars, journalists, pundits, activists, etc., and that impact on audiences who could potentially be radicalized by the real people being discussed or depicted. What then would be the damage if you actually see beyond just words and academic and etc. texts? What would then be the damage done if you could see exactly the space jamification of Malcolm X? So imagine whoever the next LeBron and Michael Jordan is supposed to be, and it's like Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Malcolm X, Marilyn Monroe, Maya Angelou, Jackie Robinson, all hanging out and drinking the latest soft drink, driving the latest sponsored car, and directed by Spike Lee. Yeah, I mean, it's the collective trauma I am trying to share in with everybody. I don't think I'm giving them any ideas. I think that's the problem. I don't think I'm helping them here. I think that they're well, on their way to that. That's it. Or they'll rebrand it and have Biden freeing Mandela by himself. It'll be like Biden freed Mandela. Yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's wild. All right, well, let's shift again. And let me even do myself. Let's take let's take a quick 9-second cleanse of the digital space and come right back. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I mix what I like. So let's get into something else here. Big shout out to Dr. Tawheed and Jackie Lukeman. I caught.
Almost don't like talking about this
Let me
subject.
hold on a second.
Because people,
I caught the latest show the other day, and it's a great discussion. They start off talking about Wells Fargo, which is something I'm going to come back to in just a little bit. Just reminding us that Wells Fargo is yet again engaged in racist practices, harming the whatever potential there is economically for Black people to advance through their savings, through home ownership, etc. But then they get into this discussion of crypto, and I just want to play a little excerpt of it, and then come back with whatever, but with my thoughts. But big shout out to them. So this is their section. This is where Jackie introduces the topic of crypto with Dr. Tawheed.
are terribly passionate about cryptocurrency, and they swear that we who do not see cryptocurrency as the revolution for Black folks just don't understand cryptocurrency. And I have to admit, I do not entirely understand the whole blockchain concept. I don't. I admit I don't. But I do know that anytime cryptocurrency is it is traded like a stock. You invest in it like a stock. And the value of the cryptocurrency depends on how many people purchase shares of the. That sounds like plain old capitalism to me, and that don't sound like revolution. But a lot of people, Dr. Tawheed, I'm going to share this article with folks. A lot of people don't agree. They believe that because a few people have done very well with cryptocurrency, that we should take heed and listen to them. And we talked about this a little bit on the morning show earlier this week. But this article came out on the 19th on MSNBC. And Jared Ball, our own Dr. Jared Ball, is quoted in this article. And there are various viewpoints in this article. There's someone there, they speak to someone called Tremaine Lee, who is an advocate of cryptocurrency being an answer for unbanked Black and Latinx people, like, people who can't, don't have enough money to get a bank account, can't get approved for a bank account. Cryptocurrency is the answer for them. Then let's see, they mention the celebrities who are now marketing cryptocurrency to a Black market. Megan Thee Stallion. They talk about Spike Lee. They talk about LeBron James, and all of those advertisements. And then they quote Dr. Ball when he says that the idea that this is a pathway, this being cryptocurrency, is a pathway towards Black liberation or the liberation of any other community is an extension. It's a rebranding of an old Black capitalist mythology. He goes on to say, and they actually do quote him quite a bit in this article, which I read that first little part and I was like, oh Lord, I hope that's not all that they quoted him in saying. And this is a pretty in-depth article. But Dr. Ball said in response to this person, Tremaine Lee, saying that the numbers show that Black people are getting into crypto at a higher rate than white people. That's the stat we already mentioned, that 23% of Black Americans own cryptocurrency compared to 11% of white Americans. And another poll found that Black Americans were more likely to say the decentralized nature of crypto was positive. Lamar thinks that's great, but others are saying, hold up a minute. And people like Dr. Jared Ball, and they quote Dr. Ball as saying, this is not because Black people are on the cutting edge, the fact that so many, 23% of Black people own cryptocurrency. He said, this is because Black people have a level of marketing that is targeting them that whites don't. And then most white investors also have a wider array of options in their portfolio. They have money to invest in different places, at different spaces. So I really want to know what your opinion, first of all, on cryptocurrency in general is, Dr. Tawhid, but also I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this idea of cryptocurrency being the answer for unbanked people in particular. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, let me say this, very very upfront, and so that no one will misunderstand what I'm about to say. Cryptocurrency is a Ponzi scheme.
Message.
It is a fraudulent operation.
Ooh.
Okay, now
I
Message.
wasn't expecting that smoke, I gotta admit.
I say that as a former programmer and as an economist who was trained and teach at a school that's very much involved in a discussion of what we call modern monetary theory. Now, there's a dictum, if you will, among modern monetary theorists with regard to money. Anyone can create money. The problem is getting people to accept it. Now, just because anyone can create, quote, money, doesn't mean that the money that's created is a valuable thing. What money is an IOU. And from people who have a history of giving IOUs and paying those IOUs back, they've developed a process of trust. I borrow some money from you, I give you my IOU, then I come back later and you want me to pay my bill back, I pay you back. So I've built up some trust. We have no evidence, no history of how a Bitcoin will eventually be settled, because it's not worth anything other than other Bitcoins, right? I mean, a dollar is worth something because I can go to the store, and when things are priced at $1, I can get that. I can exchange my dollar for that thing. Ultimately, all of this goes back to tangible assets that our money is a representation of. It's not the real thing. It's a representation of it. We just had a discussion about the Wells Fargo and mortgage-backed securities, and the fact that there was $7 trillion of mortgages and $41 trillion in insurance on those mortgages. Now, it's only possible for there to be $7 trillion of insurance on $7 trillion worth of mortgages. So the other $33 trillion was fictitious capital. It didn't represent anything. And so when you get to a Bitcoin, and today your Bitcoin is worth $1, and tomorrow your Bitcoin is worth $2, where'd the extra dollar come from? What value was created for you or anyone else that made that Bitcoin worth another dollar? And the only thing that happened was somebody else bought some more Bitcoins, and so the value of your Bitcoin went up. But one of the problems is, and you mentioned various celebrities.
I just want to stop it right there to clearly say again, message. And that is not, it wasn't Living Color, but same creators. It was, I believe that was from Don't Drink Your Juice in the Hood, where my favorite part was the Korean grocery store, where every time the door opened, the bell, it didn't just ring the bell, it said, niggas. But again, message. And all I wanted to add here is the specific phrase "greater fool theory," as some of us keep trying to push. The greater fool theory is just that the value of your, in this case, crypto only goes up when a greater fool, a bigger fool comes in and pays more for it than you did. So anyway, again, message.
Celebrities have lots of money. And so when celebrities get into Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin goes up because the demand for Bitcoin goes up. And so if I were a person who had lots of money and was intending to engage in a Ponzi scheme, I take a lot of money, I would buy into Bitcoin, and then when the value of Bitcoin goes up, I'd sell it and I'd take that money away. Well, where did that money come from? It didn't just come from anywhere. It came from people who bought those Bitcoins as the price was going up. Their money went into the Bitcoin vault and then came out to me as I converted that into dollars. Now, if we think that people are not going to take advantage of this problem in these kinds of currencies to make themselves rich, we're fooling ourselves. This is, as you said, capitalism. And it's even the worst kind of capitalism. It's financial capitalism. It's not industrial capitalism.
Oh, wow.
Industrial capitalism at least has the virtue of taking money to make something, make a product that sells for more money. This is the Marx fundamental equation of capitalism. And Marx got it right that this is what's at the heart of capitalism, the desire to make more money. But what the financial institutions have discovered how to do is to take money and from that money make more money without making anything product in the middle. And that's all a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency is. It's an opportunity for people to take money and then walk away with more money because that additional money has come from people who have gotten into the Ponzi scheme too late or didn't leave when they should have.
That's it. So obviously the show's on our channel. Watch the entire thing. The conversation is essential. And what they talk about earlier about Wells Fargo is really important. Even just what was said in that clip about Wells Fargo is really important. But that's it. I mean, that's essentially it. So it's beautiful that as a channel, we have access to an actual economist to, for my selfish purposes at least, support my very media and Black studies approach to the topic, but with the same conclusion that after the financial crash in 2008, the elite needed a new way to rip people off. And this was seen as a great way to do it. And as he later says in the conversation, a point again that I've been trying to make, for however long now, the banking system is a mess. This is not a defense of the banking system. This is not a defense of Wall Street. This is not a defense of capitalism. But why would we want a situation where, again, if the Bitcoiners and the cryptogandists get their way, why would we want a situation where the people who are the dominant holders and controllers of the economy and the currency are the Winklevoss twins, as Dr. Tawhid put it out? Why is that better? Why is it better that the CEO of Coinbase and internationally of Bitfinex, why is them becoming multiple billionaires? How is that an improvement? It's that part is never answered. Now, one of the reasons why, and this part I have to admit is a little bit funny, even as oh, by the way, Dr. Tawhid also goes into modern monetary theory. He has his own history with it. I need to go read his work on it because I'm still reading Stephanie Kelton's book. But he summarized it very well that, and he actually says it's not a theory. It's I forgot what the word is, how he describes it, but it's not a theory, but it's I don't know. It's a mechanism or an actual way a way for the economy to function when you have a situation as is the United States, where you have the resources to make whatever you want, and you just need and currency is really only in currency at this point can be created digitally. and invested in the areas that you, not just buying anything now, but investing in the areas that you have an ability to develop. So the United States, having all kinds of land and resources and capital of all kinds, can could invest in basically anything, could print or digitally create more dollars and invest them as much as it wants, because in these specific areas where it can produce product, because of all the ability here. If you have the resources, then you can produce your own currency, and at whatever levels you want, as long as they're invested in areas you can develop. And that was one of the problems that other countries that don't have the particular really empire or imperial situation the US has. They can't just print their own currency and do whatever they want, because they don't have the resources and the technical capability to mass produce the things that they need. But here, that is not an issue. So deficits are not a problem. They're not, none of these things that we're told all the time are reasons why we can't spend, and we don't need tax dollars to do it either. So it's yes, we could say the rich need to be taxed more, but that isn't required in the United States. So anyway, Dr. Tauheed gets into some of that. I'll make sure the link is available. Please check that out. But beyond this, actually, let me come back to this in a second, because a couple of you hit on something that I didn't want to come back to. Yeah, Liu Kang, your comment earlier about digital and literal necromancy. That's right. Yeah, that stuff is beyond wicked. Psychological manipulation, no doubt. Man, I hope Spike wouldn't be involved with that kind of foolishness. Promoting crypto is one thing. That could be a whole nother level. To me, he promoted a conservative version of Malcolm X. So that is, his ultimate wrongdoing. All this other stuff is easy. So promoting crypto with his old money is slavery and new money is revolution commercial, that's easy for him. Remember, he did the NYPD promotional videos. He did, historically, back in the early 2000s, he was doing black and brown Navy campaigns, like join the Navy promotional stuff. So Spike has a long history of promoting wrongness. Others have gotten more critically have done. There's some, actually, academically, there's a lot of interesting criticism of his work in terms of film, the depictions of women, the depictions of men, the depictions of this, that, and the third. One of my favorites is that, the Do the Right Thing critique from Amiri Baraka, where he says at the end of Do the Right Thing, Mookie, Spike's character, shows you what the black bourgeoisie do. They come, they throw they make the most noise and throw, they'll even throw a trash can through a window, but they come back the next morning and pick up their money, literally picking it up off the ground. I don't think it's inconsistent or inconceivable or difficult from his perspective for Spike to participate in this stuff. And of course, that's why they get Regina King to do Wells Fargo, because again, you use LeBron to promote crypto. You got Jim Jones, you got Kim Kardashian, you got Tory Lanez, you got, all kinds of people. You got Nas doing NFTs. You got all these people getting that bag, as they say, convincing black people who will be much more susceptible to that kind of marketing to invest and make these mistakes. And KD, let me tell you, if anybody, in all seriousness, if you have any interest in crypto or the economy or any of this stuff or NFTs, and you're not a subscriber to CoffeeZilla, you're making a mistake. The channel is very well done. His production is very well done. And I think even more important, his research is very strong. Dude is a little bit funny too. So I did watch all of that, and he has exposed yet another. And this is a guy, he's not a revolutionary. He is a pro investor. He's even, I don't know if I would go so far as to call him pro crypto, but he's friendly to he's not anti in the way that certainly I am, but what he is anti is people getting ripped off. So he isn't at the political, he's not at the political, I don't want to, be dismissive by saying levels, but he's not at the level of saying that it's all a hustle and all a Ponzi and capitalism itself must go. But he is at the level of saying he's one of those just honest white boys who's like, look, I honestly love America and I honestly love capitalism. Actually, I don't know. Is he Canadian? He might even be Canadian, whatever. But he's like, I love all of this, but I love it so much that I can't stand it when you hustlers rip off my beautiful capital investment. Anyway, but what he does is really good. And and he caught these cats in all the chicanery. I mean, he does all the research. He knows how to break down the blockchain and read people and follow transactions and do all this kind of stuff. He calls these people out and some of them want to engage him. I think the second in command at Safe Moon jumped on with him. Got in the mix. Yeah, I use it in the class too. That's my white boy imitation. That's my I use it, it's my standards. It's I only have one. No, he's not my favorite yet. R.M. Brown is still my favorite. R.M. Brown is still my favorite because again, RM covers more stories, and he is, I mean, honestly, CoffeeZilla is funny, but RM Brown actually makes me laugh out loud. Like I actually laugh. So but when it comes to this crypto stuff, this CoffeeZilla dude, the Spencer Cornelia dude with some of the hustlers, like, all of that, I think they do good work. And then we just have to fill in the rest with the politics. I do. Look, if you teach 4 classes a semester, every semester for going on 20 years, you got to be willing to have some fun. Otherwise you get burnt out and your evals go down. Students love me. We have fun in my classes. But yeah, I can't get any more promotions. So I'm good. I'm literally at the top. I'm at the top. I'm not loyal. Oh, funny, man. He is a fool though. Brown is a fool though. He is. Yeah, he is, KD. So, but anyway, the real quick thing, the Safe Moon thing again, it's and what I like about CoffeeZilla is he breaks out the graphs and he shows you as the stock of a coin goes up, he's showing you this is when they promoted it, this is when they said get behind it, and it goes up, and then he shows you when they rug pull and everybody, the major investors take all their money out, and they show you the line drop, and you can sometimes see it go straight down, sometimes it goes a little bit slower down as people are slower to catch up to the fact that that their money's gone. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So and he calls them out and he gets them on. Sometimes they come on too. So, but so I saw, how do you get this to, I wanted to show you this because I couldn't help it. I just saw this pop up on my IG feed just as I think it literally as I was watching.
Then my lump sums of money, I take.
You all know this dude here? Just as I was watching Jackie's segment, this dude here in front of Wells Fargo.
Then my lump sums of money, I take
Jay
out
Morrison,
the bank and I put into my own bank, which is my IUL Life Insurance Cash Reserve. My IUL Cash Reserve earns me 9.75% interest, which is more than the 0.001% in my checking account and more than my 1.9% in my savings account. That's high yielding savings account at 1.9%. And then without my IUL Cash Reserve at 9.75%, I leverage against it, keep letting it earn it. But I liquidate that cash, keeping it in while earning. I leverage against it for liquid cash that I then invest into other endeavors like real estate, sometimes stocks, sometimes futures, and other assets, right? So then those assets make me money, appreciation, cash flow, and tax advantages for the same money I was sitting in my bank doing nothing from transactions, while I got a higher death benefit for my heirs in real life. That part. Let me put my money in the bank.
So I don't even know if you could hear it all. I think it was intentionally produced with or published with bad, whatever. But just the idea, but this is sort of my point though. The reason that I just sort of caught my eyes, like as we're listening to I'm watching Jackie and Dr. Tauheed critique Wells Fargo. We got this guy who for some reason still has a following, still attracts an audience. This IG was liked at the time I got it 30, or maybe that's up to date, 32,000 times, 32,400 times. As he's coming out of Wells Fargo, promoting the fact that he has a bank account in there, and then promoting some mythology about how he's getting over on Wells Fargo by taking whatever money, putting it wherever, whatever. If you watch JT the Pocket Watcher, they do a great breakdown of this and the specifics of why what he's saying is wrong within the context of mainstream financial analysis. The Pocket Watcher does not have, he's an accountant. He doesn't have a radical analysis. He just is similar. He's like the black version, sort of like the black version of CoffeeZilla, in the sense that he's a legit defender of the American economy. He just doesn't want to see black people scamming other black people. So he calls out people like Jay Morrison here. But this idea that he is a millionaire because he puts his cash somewhere else or whatever he does, he in some sort of, and what it was some long-term life insurance policy thing. I mean, it's just so absurd. But my point is that this is the kind of cryptoganda or black capital promotional nonsense and that gets promoted to black people with successfully. And then between this dude and the Earn Your Leisure and the $1 million worth of game and all these, I mean, they get millions of views, hundreds of thousands of subscribers watching these non-analyses because they appear to be coming from the hood and from the street and from this and from that and giving you game and this and it's just nonsense. And then you come back with a Dr. Tauheed, or to a lesser extent me and people like that, and it's like, nah, we don't want to hear any of that actual data analysis, historical perspective, none of that, because you're not a millionaire. And as the dude told me, what's his name? But in our debate, he told me, you're not rich, so you don't know anything about how to make money, therefore you can't talk about it. I was like that. Oh man, it's terrible. But that's why, and I think there was a question about that I saved here. Do you think these celebrities are promoting it because that they gain from crypto, or they're being paid to promote it? They're being paid. So I haven't seen any evidence that any black people have made significant money off of cryptocurrency. I haven't seen the evidence. I hear claims. The Bitcoin brothers or whatever in our debate said that they have made multiple millionaires out in the black community with their advice. So I'm assuming that they are millionaires and that they have created millionaires, but I haven't seen the evidence for that. I read the brother's book, Jackson's book, Bitcoin for Black America. There's no evidence in there that he or anyone else has made money off of this, or how much they've made, or how they made it, or when they made it. Because again, as we talked about the other day, it's not, my argument is that even if you have made money, it's not something that you can duplicate. It's not something that is easily replicated by other people. So if you invested at a certain point with a certain amount of money that most people don't have, maybe you did make some money, but other people can't do that. And yet you're selling courses, as the Bitcoin brothers do. Remember, we showed you, they're selling courses that you can only pay for in dollars. You can't pay for it in Bitcoin, but they're going to teach you how to become millionaires in Bitcoin. I mean, it's so I think they're all just getting paid. Mostly, I think that people are just getting paid to do promotional campaigns. And in some cases, these influencers, I'm sure Spike got a nice check. I'm sure Kim Kardashian and them got a nice check. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't seen the update yet on the lawsuit. But that's why they got sued, because they're walking away with plenty of, cash. And the people that they convinced to invest are ripped off. So So yeah, I'm sure it was something akin to this. Spike was paid $200,000 to rebrand the NYPD. I'm sure he got a version of that for the Navy. I'm sure he got a version of that to do that commercial. Look, so yeah, I just don't see the evidence of it. If people are out here making money, there's no evidence, and it certainly hasn't risen to the point where it's affecting the collective, because the collective numbers we just went over on Friday a little bit through Diedrich Muhammad's piece are horrible. Of course, I know all Jay-Z's lyrics up to and through the Black Album. The first half of his career, I know all of the lines. So yeah, he was drinking Cristal when you thought it was beer. He was rocking platinum when you thought it was silver. And you broke. So what you going to tell me? Right. That's exactly the whole point. But the good news is, though, shout out to my man, shout out to Organized Coup, and my brother, my other brother Mark, sent me this story about crypto bros are trying to buy a Pacific Island, in the story by Raymond Craib. This joint is hot right here. Utopian thinking is everywhere out of favor. This is actually, I'm kind of mad that a couple of these Jacobin stories, I be hating on Jacobin too, but a couple of these stories lately have been really good on crypto. They just can't go left of that Democratic Party. That's all. At least that's how I remember them. And did y'all see? Man, what do you all think about Bernie out there with the Amazon folks? Bernie and AOC with the Amazon folks. Brother Chris Smalls, big hugs for Bernie. Ooh, oh man, these Johnny come latelys, boy. Imagine if Bernie actually had any power because he didn't drop out of the race and either won the nomination or forced the Democratic Party to fall apart. Imagine if he had done that and then come out to support Amazon. Imagine if AOC had a track record of standing up to the principles she convinced people that she was running on back in the day, and then she came out. I don't know. Anyway, utopian thinking is everywhere out of favor, except in the libertarian fantasies of crypto enthusiasts who dream of a world free from the regulatory state, law, and other forms of external authority. Now, remember, this is the argument I've been bringing in my own little crypto debates. You all are claiming black radicalism while supporting white libertarianism. And here I love it's called libertarian, it should be called white libertarian fantasies. Hucksterism and hostility to the collective life are the movement's defining features. The worldview underlying it is embodied nowhere more literally than in the schemes to exit. I'm sorry. Let me start that again. I messed that whole thing up. I want to do this article justice because it's dope. It's well done. It releases my political dopamine. Hucksterism and hostility to the collective life are this movement's defining features. The worldview underlying it is embodied nowhere more literally than in the schemes to exit from the territorial jurisdiction of the nation state prevalent throughout the history of libertarianism. Crypto luminaries have even sought to buy and govern islands using oceans to separate themselves from taxes and democracy. Satoshi Island, named after the alleged creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, and located in the Southwest Pacific archipelago, I think I got that word right, archipelago of Vanuatu, is the most recent creation of crypto's venture capitalists. A real-life private island dedicated to the crypto community, reads the promotional material. Measuring some 800 acres, just over 1 square mile, Satoshi Island is at this point almost entirely rainforest. Its main attraction, a rare species of giant coconut crabs. Other than flora and fauna, Satoshi boasts a small coastal clearing and a large house on its western edge facing the archipelago's largest island, Santo. If plans go ahead, the tropical paradise will not remain pristine for long. Would-be crypto colonizers hope to transform the island into a sustainable smart city. So already we see libertarianism, colonial expansion. I'm not seeing a lot of the difference that we're supposed to be seeing in the crypto with crypto, the revolution in crypto. I'm not seeing a difference. One could, in this broad sense, count oneself a citizen of Satoshi Island in the same way that one could, in a sense, count oneself a citizen of Disneyland. Now, what the article gets into is that what they're doing here is part of the mythology. You're not actually able to buy the land that's owned by the people. You're not actually able to change the name of the island. You're not actually able to own it in the way that these materials are promising, just like in the overall promotion of crypto. You're not really investing in ownership of anything or in anything that's going to create value for the world. It's all a mirage itself, a mirage that is itself wrapped around a libertarian capitalist mythology or fantasy or colonialism, really. So as they say here, even the use of the phrase private island is a misnomer. Since independence in 1980, all the land in Vanuatu is held by custom owners, native Ni Vanuatu, native inhabitants of the islands who can lease but not sell the land. It is not a private island because foreign investors will not be able to enjoy freehold ownership. Even the island's name is more complicated than the promoters would like to let on. The brains behind the project, Anthony Welts, a retired property investor who now lives in Vanuatu, renamed the island in grand imperial fashion 2 years ago. Vanuatu's government has pointed out that such an act has no force of law or real significance. According to the country's Director General of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, in order to formally change the name, which is actually Le Tharo, the government's place name committee would need to approve such a request. This hasn't happened. Satoshi Island is, for all intents and purposes, a fantasy island. And I love this line here. The archetype for these libertarian adventures is Burning Man. More often, they are closer to the infamous Fire Festival. Inspired by the fictions of Ayn Rand and the myth of Robinson Crusoe, men such as Nevada coin dealer and land developer Michael Oliver, University of Southern California philosophy professor John Hospers, Rand's former acolyte and paramour, Nathaniel Brandon, and international finance guru Harry Schultz founded the Phoenix Foundation with the hopes of forging their own private archipelago. So this is, again, I love the point of this article. It's an imperial design. Crypto, just like everything else, is part of an extension of an imperial effort to allow the colonizers freedom from democracy, freedom from oversight, freedom from regulation, freedom from anything that would would limit their inhumane version of humanity. And that's why we get all these Ayn Rand folks and et cetera and so forth. Quoting by, anyway, Michael Oliver, one of the foremost exit advocates, that is exiting of the nation state, and author of A New Constitution for a New Country, and the Capitalist Country newsletter, made this clear. A surprising number of uninhabited yet quite suitable places for establishing a new country still exist. Many such places are scarcely developed colonies whose governmental or other activities are of little or no concern at all to their mother countries. There will be little problem in purchasing the land or in having the opportunity to conduct affairs on a free enterprise basis from the very beginning. Libertarian exiters saw an opportunity to pursue individual self-determination in the very places struggling against colonial rule. So part of what this article talks about, and I'll link it so you can read it, more closely on your own. It's a little bit long and goes into a number of very interesting things. But what I like, one of them being that this libertarian fantasy emerges at a time in response to anti-colonial liberation movements. So again, as these folks see the colonized rising up around the world, they've of course wanted to find new ways to prevent that. So one of the new ways is, fine, if you all are going to have the nerve to be free and struggle for your freedom, we'll go and create a new autonomous place for ourselves. It's like we've enslaved, we've colonized, we've exploited, and where some of those who suffered all of that want their freedom, we're gonna fine, we're out. That's too much freedom and democracy. We can't do everything we want to do. We're gonna go create something new. Who is going to work there? This is the point that I and others have been getting at. The people that are going to work there are those who are the technophobes, the FUDs, the non-investors who don't own Bitcoin. Because again, remember, if the Bitcoin cryptogandist enthusiasts get their way, those who have already bought up a lion's share of that currency, Bitcoin in this case, and who own and control the currencies of exchange and the mining, they're going to become the overlords. And every one of the rest of us will have nothing, will have no choice, because we will not have any Bitcoin. Certainly not at the levels to create power. We will have to go sell our labor. So I don't think from their perspective, they're worried about that. They think that there's going to be an endless, in fact, they would know there's going to be an endless wave of desperate and underemployed peasants and proletariat. Sounds great. So as we were talking about again with Barrett Brown, behind all of this, not discussed in this particular article, but behind all of this is that Peter Thiel worldview, that sort of digital neo-Nazi worldview, where you have a group of, in terms of this country, a bunch of anti-American secessionists who fear decolonization so much that they would rather abandon their own countries of origin and the countries that they claim to be patriotic and flag wavers of, and wanting to uphold. They're ready to abandon it and secede from the Union once again. It's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. Anyway, I hope this isn't true. I hope that's not true. And I can't imagine where this film would be made. But according to R.M. Brown, the right, Ben Shapiro and all of them are creating their own movie industry. And they've been producing right-wing movies about school shootings and all kinds of stuff. So maybe there is hope if we use our buying power properly. We can create a film studio I actually would, as a fantasy, have that for BPM, that we could fund film projects and create our own little film industry. But that's the only way that film would get made. That's all I'm trying to say. All right, so there's one more story I wanted to get to this morning, and then I'll come back and check if there are any questions or comments that I might have missed. But that I found interesting, obviously, with all the discussion of Russia, Ukraine, there's been a lot of great analyses. I'm not thinking I'm adding to that here. I've just found this story to be very interesting. I do, continue to look at the I keep forgetting what they're called. The I don't know, the industry press for marketing. And this story came out in Adweek this week, the origin story of Ukraine's creative industry. And I thought there were a couple of things that were very interesting, how the nation's advertising and communication scene has been evolving over the past decade. So of course this is an anti-Russian, piece here, but a couple of interesting little gems in it. August 24th, 1991, the Supreme Soviet of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic declared the independence of Ukraine. After the Soviet dictatorship, Ukraine, an Eastern European country, renewed its independence. It kept going in its own way, and its creative market started to form as well. Again, that's sort of that old argument that under the socialist communist world, there's no freedom of an individuality, so there's no creativity, there's no art, there's no nothing. So that's that sort of implicit messaging there. Over the next decade, Ukrainians mastered the new profession. The first copywriters were ex-journalists, teachers, and engineers, and the first clients were foreign companies. The advertising law was adopted in 1996, and the Ukrainian Advertising Coalition was created the following year. Global ad networks opened their offices, and expats became the first creative directors bringing the Western vision. So again, they're very clear. This is what I'm seeing is a very clear connection between the politics of the West, the anti-Soviet politics of the West, being intimately linked, inextricably linked to the evolving, positively described, evolving creative industry in the Ukraine. That the idea of an apolitical or and they don't use the word propaganda here, but that propaganda is somehow not the same as advertising or in this case creativity. You know, and anyway, and the rest of it is just a short piece about the evolving businesses and individuals in the Ukraine in the creative industry who promote and market fighting for liberty. The fighting for the liberty of being yourself is in our historical memory. It's our way of living, says Anna Gocharova, the founder of creative agency Drama Queen, who showed the Ukrainian market how sensual manifestos could be. She believed that the revolution revived the love for local manufacturers. So, I mean, it's again, I don't know. It's just interesting. Capitalism and Western ethics have to be marketed and branded and imposed, and it's seen clearly as part of the Western vision in a positive sense. That is. Yeah, that was it. I guess that was it. The world's biggest store of Ukrainian labels, open featuring products, more than 250 local brands, headlines 30 new restaurants in Kiev, 10 bars that opened, the development of small business fashions included, the more entrepreneurs learned about branding, marketing, creative solutions, the more new agencies emerged, talented copywriters, so on and so on and so on. So that was it. It was just that infusion of Western anti-Soviet politics in the burgeoning and developing creative industry. Thought was pretty interesting. Yeah. Sensual L Manifesto. That's it. Yeah, all of that good stuff. I mean, I'm down for it. I mean, again, I don't know. I'm not a filmmaker. I don't know how that would work, but I'm all for that idea. I think, with enough iPhones and editing suites and talented actors, we could put something dope together. I know there are a lot of talented filmmakers doing stuff on the low all the time. So yeah, I think, remake Roots, or just pick up tell some of these other stories that need to get told. We should make a revolutionary comic book. That'd be a great idea. That would be a great idea. So, anyway, that was all I had for this morning, good folks. I hope you all will stick around and make sure you're all caught up on whatever you may have missed on the channel. A lot of stuff was uploaded this past week. I'll be back on Friday with more I Mix What I Like and a discussion of anarchism and the Black Revolution with Lorenzo K. Irvin, Dr. Joy James, Geechee Yard. I believe Brother Diallo will be here as well. We got the Remix Morning Show coming back, of course, tomorrow morning. You got Sundays from last night, which I had to miss, unfortunately. Please definitely go check that out. Please go back and feel free to get caught up on our Happy Birthday Mumia stuff. I dropped some stuff for Eddie Conway's birthday. That was just the other day, and I hope he's, to whatever extent possible, doing better. And much love to him and his family. Anyway, so a lot of stuff has been out here. Go check it all out and continue to support the channel. Get you some merch. Get you this, Yeah, that's it. Birds, birds and revolutionary talk. That's it. I got the windows open, got the birds, you know. Oh, that would be dope. An ice cold Carter comic. We definitely need more about that. We definitely need more about that. So me and my man Bashi Rose were talking about at one point we had actually had developed a story that would be an update on Spook. And it was going to be set in Baltimore. It was going to focus on. So this is actually what we had come up with, and maybe I don't mind sharing it. Somebody can go out and do this. This is already 10 years since we were talking, or 8 years since we were talking about it. 7, 8 years. So the story was going to be an update of the Spook who sat by the door, focused on the sister Araminta Jones, Araminta being Harriet Tubman's real name, and so the sister in Baltimore was going to be the leader of the ongoing struggle. Araminta Jones was the character's name, and we were going to have we'd even talked about the montage of history that we would use to bring us from the Spook to today. And we had reset the whole thing. So what would have happened if that effort had taken off, spread, was somewhat successful, and had reached a certain level of success in Baltimore, where the a black revolution took hold, and this is how we did it. All black people in the country were invited, and as many as wanted to and could make it came from all around the country into Baltimore and the surrounding area. So we would have had, I don't know if we had counted up the numbers, but it would have been like maybe something this akin to the size of 2 New York cities, an expanded Baltimore area to the size of 2 New York cities that was largely run by Araminta Jones, or she was the leader of this effort. And it was a protected space. We had talked about, because we had the ports, we had water access, sea access, and we were talking about African traditional, before Black Panther. We had talked about the development of African cultural spiritual practices using the surrounding natural environment as a protective force. We were coming up with all these ways to explain how this community could have sustained itself in a protected way in this Baltimore, Maryland area. And then we were picking up the story there with a still colonial, a U.S. colonizing or white colonizing force outside. And we were trying to explain how we got there, how it was sustaining, and then what was good. The story was going to go from there to see what would happen next. That's where we were with the story. And we had talked about how we would shoot it, who would act in it, how we would, like guerrilla style, put this thing together. And the only demand I made on it, because I was going to help with all the things behind the scenes that I could, but I did want to play an updated version of what's my man's name from the original, because I wanted that line, and I had even practiced it. See, man, that's the problem. Don't you know that I was born Black? I live Black. And I'm going to die probably because I'm Black, and some cracker that knows I'm Black better than you, nigga, is going to put a bullet in the back of my head. I said, I want that line. I was going to have that character in there. And that would be a shout out to the original fit. So yeah, we had gotten a little far, at least in talking about it. So I'm down with it. Oh, you want that half and pass roll. That's right. I didn't even see that in your comment. But that was exactly it. I was going to have that roll. That's perfect. You see that? You see that I had to get in character. You see what I'm saying? So I'm down with it. And even as a concept, I think it's a great idea. I would love to see if people could. I'm a DC person too, but Bashi's Baltimore, and we were working in Baltimore at the time. And really what I was conceiving would have probably been a situation where you would have had to combine the DC to Baltimore corridor. And that would have been what would have been taken over to have enough space for, you know, roughly 40 million Africans in this country, and maybe coming from Canada or whatever else. I don't know. We hadn't really gotten that far, but yeah, but that would be dope. I'm with you. Like, I think so. I put the idea out there. If you all can make it, somebody can make it happen. That would have been that. It would have been, you know. Anyway. No, that was yeah. No, that wasn't. Yeah, so that's the other thing. So Lee Daniels is apparently doing he's in Baltimore doing the spook update. And right, that's my audition. Keep that, clip that, tape that. Right, Blosker. Tell Ear Doctor I want a nomination. Anyway, listen here, good people. I really appreciate you coming through. It's always fun for me to do these shows. I had a great time this morning. I hope you enjoyed yourself to some extent. And those seeing this later, shout out to you as well. If you're hearing this on all your favorite podcast locations, peace and shout out to you as well. Definitely like, share, subscribe, join, click the bell, do all of them things. And you know what, man? Even though I got my own cup now, if you got something else to say, definitely
Put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments. And I'll catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like and throughout the channel. Peace, everybody, like Fred Hampton used to say, because we know you're willing to fight for it. Catch you next time. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What I like, what I like, what I like.